latest that we have, the update from that particular airport. We have our very own Willy Lusige, who is following up the going-ons at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. A very good morning.
A very good day to you. I hope you're celebrating an amazing Wednesday. It is 19:07 East African time on the 11th of September 2024. It's a beautiful Wednesday. And this is the Black Hot Fire updates. So I am here to tell you about each and everything that was making headlines in Africa today, and what you should, just to keep you on the know, to let you know what has been happening. And a lot has been happening, really, starting with the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport strike. And it is a very, it has a twist into it. The JKIA workers are not protesting because of themselves. They are protesting because apparently looks like Jomo Kenyatta International Airport might be taken over by an Indian company, Adani. So that is why they're protesting. So we're going to be looking into that, and that is actually the first story that we're going to focus on. This is Citizen TV reporting on the same.
Sige, what can you tell us about the go-slow that has left travelers stranded at the airport this morning? What information have you received so far?
Safin and our viewers, definitely is not a good morning here at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Since last night, we're being told this strike began almost around 9 p.m. It has spread all the way through the night, and now things are still getting worse. Thousands of travelers here are still stranded at the JKIA, not knowing what to happen next, because many of them are those ones who wanted to travel outside the country, and apart from that also, there are those ones maybe who were expected to travel in. But the majority that I've spoken to, they are those ones who are supposed to travel out of the country this morning, and this is all because of the current strike that involves the Kenya airport workers under their union, which is KAU, who had given a notice of strike, and the government was having a discussion with them in relation to the privatization of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and the bigger contract to do with the Adani Group holding. So they had requested the government to halt the entire privatization or the leasing process, and to have a discussion with them about the welfare of their workers, the welfare of their members of the union.
So the workers are on a ghost law. A ghost law is where they are not doing the work as they should, and it's majorly because of reports that came out that looked like Jomo Kenyatta International Airport was about to be privatized. There was going to be a takeover by a company called Adani. That did not sit well with the workers and many people, so the workers decided to do what is called ghost law. That left many passengers who used the JKIA stranded, and planes had to remain grounded since the demonstrations began. The government has said that the build and operate agreement with India's Adani Group would see the JKIA renovated and an additional runway and terminal constructed in exchange for the group running the airport for 30 years. So that is the deal that the government saw as a good one. Adani was going to run the airport for 30 years in exchange to constructing an additional runway, a new terminal, and renovation, construction of a new runway and a new terminal. That is in exchange for the group running the airport for 30 years. I am not a mathematician. I don't know how much JKIA makes in a day. I don't know the stake financially. I know the stake in other ways, but I don't know the stake financially. But there is no way the three things Adani is offering equate to the airport taking over the airport for 30 years. I mean, constructing a new runway, a new terminal, and renovating the airport is something the government can do by itself. It doesn't need Adani coming in to do that in exchange for running the airport for 30 years. The Kenya Airport Workers Union is the one that announced the strike. It said that the deal would lead to job losses and inferior terms and conditions of service for those who are going to remain. Kenya Airways announced on Wednesday that there would be flight delays and possible cancellations because of them going strike at the airport, which serves Nairobi. So last week, airport workers had threatened to go on strike, but the plans were called off pending discussions with the government. So this whole thing started when people started spotting unknown people moving around the airport, with airport officials taking notes and photographs and that raised concern that the Indian farm officials were raiding for the deal. So the High Court of Kenya on Monday halted temporarily, let me add the word temporarily, halted the implementation of the deal until a case filed by the LSK and the Kenya Human Rights Commission is heard. The government spokesperson, Isaac Mwaura, has come out and said that the deal is just but a proposal. So it's not yet done. So they are telling Kenyans to relax because it wasn't a deal that was signed, it was just a proposal. But then the government still, on the other side, is saying that the deal was to be a 30-year deal. And so that is why now airport workers decided they were not going to sit down and watch the airport being taken over. And they went on a go slow. Now no plane has left JKIA since yesterday midnight.
And that did not happen during the grace period of the notice. And then that's why today they began officially their strike. That I was speaking to some of them, they said they officially began in the middle of the night, that is the midnight. But travelers who have spoken to here have said some of them were even stranded as early as 9 p.m. last night. And nothing so far is happening. As you can see, that's definitely thousands of travelers who are still stranded here. They don't know how they'll be able to leave the country because all the planes that had docked here are yet to leave. There's nothing that is happening. What we have witnessed is only at the exit point here at the international leaving point. We have seen a number of police officers trying to be able to screen the high number of travelers who are here, but the pace is going very slow because there's also a lot of interference from the Kenya airports workers who are questioning why police officers are being used to screen travelers because they don't know the safety measures, they don't know the procedure, they don't know what it entails to be able to screen passengers who are leaving the country. So that also might be a breach of security. And apart from that, also they are questioning the same on how police officers can be able to ascertain proper screening of those ones who are arriving, because there's a lot of confusion right now. So you can see these are hundreds of travelers who don't know what will happen next because many of them had booked their flights earlier. I was speaking to one of them a few minutes. That is a member of parliament from Bungoma, Majimbo Kalasinga, who's also still stranded here. He was supposed to travel to Joburg in South Africa, but that was not able to happen. So we'll be keeping an eye, following up on what will continue to transpire here at JKIA, but definitely it's going to be a long day because now more than 10,000 Kenya airports workers have down their tool until the government listens to them and halts the privatization of the Adani leasing of this airport, Safi.
Thank you so much, Willie Lusige, for that update. Of course, Lusige will be staying on at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport just to tell us what will transpire as the day goes by. We began bringing you pictures from wee hours of the morning of how the situation has been at the airport as passengers remained stranded following that planned leasing of the airport. Of course, one of the stories we are following up for you today, plus others that our news team is working.
So that was the JKIA takeover. Well, now, it all started as a minute conversation. We didn't know it was going to escalate to this. They talk about privatizing government corporations and very vital organs. And this is not a Kenyan problem. This is an African problem where now the conversation has been shifting to privatizing government institutions, government parastatals, on which some of them are very vital government institutions, public institutions. I should not use the word government, but very vital public institutions. You look at the airport, for example, that is a country's inlet and outlet. So it's a very, very vital part of any economy, the airport, same as the ports, because that is a country's inlet and that is a country's outlet. And once you have control of the airport, you have control of whatever comes in and whatever goes out of a country. And it's not a desirable thing to have a foreign entity in control of such a vital organ. So I do understand why the workers are on strike, and this should actually be the case in each and every other entity that they try to privatize all over Africa. They try to privatize the seed companies. The workers in those companies should go out and strike, because I don't think the amount of money that the government has lost on this strike is ridiculous, because JKIA is one of the busiest airports in Africa. I'm sure it's the busiest airport in East and Central Africa. It does hundreds of flights a day. So when the workers down their tools, and of course no flights have taken off today, that's a big loss to the country, because that means also no plane has landed. So it's a big loss to the economy, and that is going to maybe, just maybe, have them listen, because we cannot joke around so much that we are privatizing the most important organs, the most important vital entities in the government, in the economy, such as airports. So that was the deal that looks like it is not going to sail through, because now everybody is against it, including the courts, because it doesn't make sense to have an Indian entity take over a Kenyan airport for 30 years in exchange for just building a few things, a new runway and a new terminal, and renovating the airport. I mean, it's okay if we do not have the capacity. Let's, for argument's sake, assume we do not have the capacity to build a new runway, we do not have the capacity to build a new terminal, we do not have the capacity to renovate JKIA. Well and good. Adani comes in, they have the capacity to do that. Let them quote the price. How much is it going to cost for you to do those three things? Let the government pay them, and let the government remain in control of its vital entities, public entities. I mean, how much would it cost for the renovation and the new terminal and the new runway? But it's ridiculous when we make deals such as the one that we are seeing right now, a 30-year deal over some things that do not equate to the same amount. Talking about that, in South Africa, there's a farmer who killed 2 women and fed the bodies to pigs. So I couldn't believe the story when I first saw it. I think I first heard it from Keith, where a farm owner killed a woman, not a woman actually, 2 women, and fed their bodies to pigs in South Africa. And the South Africans are just okay with it. So what I'm seeing from this story is just the three suspects apparently who are suspected to have been involved in the murder being arraigned in court, which doesn't even give me any sense of hope, knowing how the judicial systems work in Africa. But a farmer fed a woman's body to pigs in Africa, in South Africa, and the South Africans are okay with it. In 2024. When I first heard of this story from Keith, I couldn't believe it, so I had to go look at it.
Just take you back to Limpopo in Polokwane. Muloko is in outside the Mankweng Magistrate Court, where 2 employees on the farm are going to be appearing. Zachariah Olivier, Rudolph Devet, and William Musora, accused of killing 2 women whose decomposing bodies were then found on
I'm not even going to mention what skin color the farmers are.
Furus farm in the Sibayeng area. It's believed the bodies were being fed to pigs. Good morning, Muloko. What's happening?
Good morning, Brajan Moyani. The three men, actually, the farm owner and two of his employees will be making a second appearance in the Mankweng Magistrates Court. I'm just going to quickly step out of shot so that my colleague can show you some of the people who have come out to picket outside. Mainly, they are members of the ANC Women's League, and I understand that they have been picketing even from day one, on the day the three men got arrested. They were arrested sometime last week following the discovery of that gruesome instance where the bodies of the two women were found in a decomposed state, and we are told that the pigs had already begun to feast on their bodies. But let's bring into this conversation the National Prosecuting Authority. Her name is Mashudu Malabizangi. Ma'am, thank you so much for your time. Just to understand, on the first appearance of the three men, we understand that the media people were told that they cannot show the faces of these three men. Any reason?
Yes, there was an order that the accused person, they have to go through the ID parade. That is why we've...
So a farmer killed 3 African women because they were black women, fed them to pigs, and the systems are still protecting them from even having their faces shown in the media. So the farm owner, his name is Zakaria Johannes Oliver, is among the ones who are taken to court, together with a Zimbabwean national. There is a Zimbabwean national also. And the 3 of them are even in South Africa illegally, according to South African officials. So the story goes that in August, a truck belonging to a dairy company dumped potentially expired goods at Olivia's farm, prompting the 2 women to trespass and try collect the goods. Both were shot and killed for trying to trespass and collect expired goods. The goods that were dropped at this farmer's farm were expired. So the 2 women, I don't know, out of poverty, out of desperation, I don't know, tried to trespass and collect the products. They were both shot and killed. A man with them was injured, but he was able to crawl to a nearby road and scream for help. So that is how the 2 women were killed and how they were thrown into the pigs. I don't even know what to say about this case. The case is going to continue next month. It's really, really saddening. When we see our people still going through some of the things that they go through. I mean, having African women still being murdered and thrown to pigs. Anyway, in Senegal, 4 other migrants died. That was not all. The deaths were too many. Today in Senegal, 4 migrants died and others are still missing after another boat capsized in Senegal. After yet another capsized the other week. So it's like a weekly thing. I know it's not even news in Senegal anymore when we talk about people dying from boats capsizing. It happens every other day. How desperate people are to leave Africa, that they are ready to, they would rather die than stay here. The other day, there was another one that capsized in Libya that had about 22 people missing. The other day, there was another one that had 12 migrants dying. The other day, there was the other one from DRC that had 20 people dying, if I can remember well. So the boat was carrying migrants and it capsized off the coast of Senegal over the weekend, leaving at least 4 people dead and several others missing. The artisanal fishing boat left Senegal, left the capital Dakar, headed to Europe on Sunday afternoon before capsizing a few miles off the coast. Local fishermen were able to rescue 3 people who were brought back to the shore, but 22 are still missing up to now. I don't need to mention how the number of migrants attempting, or leaving West Africa through Senegal has really surged. You might blame it on poverty, because that's the big contributor of this. Poverty and lack of opportunities, but then it's beyond poverty and lack of opportunities. It now goes to the fact that there is no hope. Because lacking poverty is one thing and lacking opportunity is another thing. But when you're hopeful that maybe tomorrow it's gonna be better, then you are most probably going to stick around for a little bit longer. But now when you look at your situation right now, you messed up, no job, poverty is here with you, conflict, because conflict is another big contributor, and still you look around and there's also no hope of anything improving anytime soon. That is how we are having people now giving up on Africa and trying to cross over, because we look at the number of people who have tried. In fact, 23,000 people, 22,300 people have landed on the Canary Island since the beginning of this year. 22,300 people have successfully landed on the Canary Island, not counting the ones who've died trying to get there. Okay, the statistics are according to the Spain's Interior Ministry, so I don't know how accurate they are, but according to the number of deaths that we see, and for a fact that even as some die, some succeed in getting to the Canary Island, so I have no doubts that the truth is not so far from the numbers. The number of people who've died who've crossed over, tried, attempted, succeeded in crossing over to Spain is up there. It's a big number. It's really, it's a situation, it's a desperate situation where, because I was looking at the numbers, comparing them with the numbers that Spain had released a year ago, and it was 126% more than the numbers from last year. So that should tell you that in that West African part, especially near Senegal, that West African bloc, the desperation is growing every day. The conditions, the situations, the cost of living, the standards of living is deteriorating every day. Now people are readier to die in the sea than to die out of hunger. And I know that is not the solution really, because it's never, the grass is never greener on the other side as we always think it is. But at some point I do understand them, and I understand their reasoning from a point of ignorance. It's what is born when you have nothing to hope for and nothing to wait for anymore. That is what is born when there's no hope anymore. Because you might be poor, but as long as you're hopeful, you know that something is going to change, then you're going to stick around a little longer. But now, the moment you're poor, you're messed up, you have no food, and you have no hope, that is a very dangerous person. And that is what I'm saying, I do understand some of the migrants who try to get on the boats and they die in the sea, because as Henry Mbuga says in Betrayal in the City, it was better while we waited. Now we have nothing to wait for and nothing to look forward to. That's what is happening in those West African countries. When they were fighting for independence, when they had the likes of Kwame Nkrumah and the rest, and the first Nigerian president, a good man, at that time they had nothing to look forward to. They thought, once the white man goes and now we are the ones ruling ourselves, then we'll be freer and we'll be, the conditions, the standards of living are going to be better. We will now have our own leaders who will care for us. So at that time there was one thing that is not here right now: hope. There was hope. They thought that once the white man goes, Africa was going to stabilize and be the place it's supposed to be. But now it's 2024, the white man is long gone. Or has he really gone? But now the challenge comes in that now there is nothing to look forward to. That is what Imbuga said it was better while we waited. Now we have nothing to wait for and nothing to look forward to. So that is how they get suicidal like this. In July, if I can remember well, a boat carrying 300 migrants, most of them are from Gambia and Senegal, capsized off Mauritania. About a dozen died, 150 others went missing in July. So trust you me, the 150 are dead. They're not hanging around somewhere in the sea since July. So we can comfortably say more than 150 people died on that accident. Last month, the Senegalese army said that it had arrested 453 migrants who were trying to cross over to the Canary. They're actually smuggling networks that do that. They have created what are called smuggling networks. So if you want to get smuggled to the Canary, there are people you talk to, there are networks that you meet, and they are able to do that. So the route that they use from West Africa to the Canary Island is what is called the Atlantic route. It's one of the deadliest in the world. But one thing that we know is that the victims from the Atlantic route, the West Africa Canary Island Atlantic route, are in the thousands each year. In this year already, we passed the 1,000 mark a long time ago. I think before April, we had done 1,000 Africans dying on this route, on the West Africa to Canary Atlantic route. So most of the boats either get lost, they get engine problems, or they just vanish. Some drift in the ocean for months before they are found. And in most cases, they are only carrying human remains. And that is actually what happens in most cases. If you look at, there was a time they found how many bodies in Brazil? 15. In the Caribbean, they found about 15 bodies. So sometimes the boat just drift across the ocean for months because they ran into maybe an engine problem and it can't be able now to get to the Canary. So now the people try to the people, once the people run out of provisions, they die on the boats, and the boats stay afloat for months until it is recovered somewhere. Anyway, I think Keith just joined me as I was just ending. And in Kenya, there was another fire. There was a primary school fire, not another fire. There was a primary school fire, and the country declared 3 days of mourning to mourn the children, the children who died on Thursday. It was Thursday on September 5th that killed about 18 students. It was a school in central Kenya called Hillside and Darasha, where 18 children died. 70 are still unaccounted for. 70 children are still unaccounted for after the fire that happened in that school. It's a primary school. Of course, the emergency preparedness in Africa is, where it is very low, and so before most of them even they could have been rescued, but they were not rescued. And then the ones that were rescued are now even the problem, because there are so many that are claimed to have been. There are so many who claim to have been. There are people who claim that they saw children being rescued and put on ambulances, but they can't account for them now. So you saw your kid being put on an ambulance, but now you can't find them among the 70 that are missing. Anyway, I know more of that is going to come up. It's 2024. You can't hide things for too long. So things always come out. So we're still going to know where the 70 missing children are. But what we know so far is 18 are dead. And all the government did was announce 3 days of mourning. Anyway, that was all that was happening throughout the whole of Africa. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. Big shout out to Ikan Fire, who was with me, and the rest of the family. It's always a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. Much love.
Man, I missed it. Shit.
Kid, what, kid?